Hi everyone, welcome to this introduction to object-oriented programming. Today we will be using Java to help us with this introduction. The scenario is a computer game called Barmy Farmers. And every farmer in the game will have three properties: a name, a score, and a bankrupt status. So the question we need to ask ourselves is, how can we manage this data for each farmer as the game is being executed? Strategy number one would be to make independent variables for each item of data in the game. Strategy number two would be to take advantage of our knowledge of arrays and use arrays to help us process and manage the data in the game. Strategy number three is to take advantage of object-oriented programming and create three objects which will be processed in the Barmy Farmers game. So what we really want to do is have a situation where we've got a farmer object which stores a name, a score, and a bankrupt status, and another farmer object which stores a name, a score, and a bankrupt status, because we know every farmer has three properties. And then, of course, our third farmer object which stores a name, a score, and a bankrupt status. To communicate with these objects, our computer program will need variables. Okay? And in Java, when we declare variables in a computer program, we need to tell Java the data type of the variable. Interestingly, the data type of these three variables is farmer. And these are farmer objects. So how can we do this in Java? Let's jump into our IDE and get started. So I've already set up my Barmy Farmers project environment. I'm now going to create my first class, which is going to be my main class. That's usually where I start. And that's where we will see the public static void main. Now what we're trying to achieve here, if we go back to the unit page, is a situation where we're creating three variables. This is one, this is two, and this is number three. These are the three variables. The data type is farmer. And when we construct a farmer, we give it three pieces of data. We give it a name, a score, and a bankrupt status. Okay? So this function here, we know it's a function because we've got the round brackets. This function here is very special. We call this function every time we want to construct a new farmer. But where is this function defined? Where is this data type, farmer? We, as computer programmers, need to design it. What we need to do is design the farmer class. So let's go back to our project environment, and I'm going to create a new class. And this will be the farmer class. It's not where we're going to have the public static void main. No. This is just a farmer class. So let's create it. So here we have the farmer class, and this is how we're going to design it. We're going to declare farmer properties. And remember, there were three of them. There was name, score, and the bankrupt status. That's the first thing we're going to do. The next thing we're going to do is design that special function. Do you remember that special function I'm talking about? This is the name of it. Oh, this function has got the same name as the data type. That's interesting. So we need to design this function. So we'll do that in a moment. And then we want to design any other functions, and we'll look at that in a moment. So first of all, let's declare the farmer properties. We know that name is a string, score is an integer, and this bankrupt status, let's make it Boolean. You are bankrupt or you're not bankrupt. So Boolean seems reasonable for this property. So we've declared 3 properties related to farmer objects. The next thing we need to do is to design this special function. The name of that function is farmer, and it has the same name as the data type. Very interesting. So let's do it. Public what? Public void farmer. Now this function here is very special because it has the same name as the class name. This is known as the constructor method. Now method is just another name for function. But when we're designing classes like this, we usually use the word method. We're going to design the constructor method. And in Java, the constructor method is so special, it doesn't need the return type. Don't need it. We're just going to do that. Now what we could do is say, okay, the constructor method's purpose is really to initialize these properties. So I could say, okay, name equals Jack, score equals 0, and bankrupt equals false. I could do that. Okay, so that's fine. So let's go back into our main program now, and let's create a variable called Joe and call that constructor method. But remember, Java is very strict. When we declare a variable, we need to tell Java the data type, and the data type of this is Joe. Also, in object-oriented programming, when we are calling this magical constructor method, we need to use the keyword new. So we've just created a farmer object, and this variable is communicating with the object. Let's see if it's working. We're going to use that variable Joe to communicate with these object variables. So let's say joe.name. Okay. So let's run the program and see if that works. Yay! There you go. Because when we constructed the farmer object, we called the constructor method, and according to the constructor method, this is the data that is assigned to the properties of the object. Every farmer, in fact, will be called Jack, because that's what we're doing here. To make that clear, I'm going to construct another farmer object. I'm going to make a variable Jill, and I'm going to construct a new farmer object for that variable to communicate with. Now let's use the variable Jill to print out this farmer's name, the Jill object's name. Okay, so let's do that. Oh, okay. So every farmer is going to be called Jack, because that's what my design says. Every time we call a constructor method of the farmer class, we assign Jack to be the name of the farmer. We don't really want that. We want every farmer to have its own name. So really, we want to do this. when we construct a farmer, we tell the object what its name property is going to be. That's what we want to do when we construct a farmer. Okay, so we're going to have to redesign the constructor method of the farmer class. It now processes a string, let's call it n, and it assigns that parameter to the object variable, which is this one here. Okay. Now, I could do this, just so I don't have to keep awkwardly having to come up with new variable names. I know that this is a name, so I want to use the variable name. Okay, so now I need to do this, but there is ambiguity. Which name are we talking about here? They both have the same identifier. So to take away that ambiguity, we can use the keyword this. This dot name means the object's variable, and this variable here is the parameter. Okay, so the this keyword removes the ambiguity. So we're assigning this parameter to this object variable to be stored inside the object. What we're doing when we run this code is storing data inside the object. That's what the constructor method is helping us to do as we get started. Okay? Now, when I construct a farmer, if I want every farmer to start with a score of 0, I can just do it like that. Every farmer starts with a score of 0, and every farmer starts with a bankrupt status of false. But maybe I want every farmer to have a different score when they start. I'm just going to redesign. Okay, so I can get some data from outside the object and assign it to the object variable. Okay. Now, other functions, actually, the task tells us that every farmer has another behavior. It can speak its name. A farmer can speak. This is behavior. So when we think of the word behavior, we need to think of methods. Okay. So let's design this method. It's not special. We do need the return type. It's called speak, doesn't take any parameters, and it simply does this. System.out.println. My name is, and let's fix onto that sentence the data stored in this object variable here. The variable is name. Okay, so when we call the speak method, this line of code will run. Okay, so let's test it and see if it works. I've changed the design of the constructor method. It now processes a string and an integer. So when we call the constructor method, let's also give it an integer. That's fine. And now let's call this object's speak method. Use the variable. This is the reference variable. This variable is referencing an object. Okay, so let's run the code and see if it works. Yay, it works! And that's a brief introduction to how to construct a new object in a computer program, and also how to design a class which allows us to construct an object of this data type. Have a go.